Hi everybody, in this video we're going to take a look at how to accept an input from the command prompt, and we will do something with that input and then write output back to the command prompt. So first I'm going to create a string, I'll call it input, and then I'm going to use a Console.ReadLine, and this is the statement that will accept input from the command prompt. But before we do that, let's output a prompt. Okay, so what's happening here is we have a string variable being created, and it's really two statements here. We've also assigned an initial value of an empty string to that string variable. Then we're going to enter a name, and notice we used write instead of WriteLine, and then I'll just leave the command prompt on the same line, so it'll output enter a name : space, and then it'll leave the command prompt insertion point at this point without adding a new line, which I think is a little nicer when you're inputting a simple value. And then we're going to use this Console.ReadLine. Now this waits for the user to enter something, and when the user hits the return or the enter key on their keyboard, this is when this method returns a value from that command prompt. So we need to do something with it. So I'm going to assign the value from our readline input to our input string variable, and then let's do something with it. We'll just say we'll just say hello, and then the user's name, because I could have called that variable something like username. And I'll put an exclamation mark there as well. Okay. So let's run it and see what happens. Nope, we've got a colon instead of a semicolon. Run it again. And here's the command prompt. So I'm going to enter my name. Notice it output enter a name : space, and left the cursor on that line in the command prompt. And then as soon as I hit return, it's going to go to the next line and output hello James. Okay. Let's also input a number as well. So in this example, I'll enter an age. I'm going to output a prompt of enter your age, and then I'll accept that input into I'll accept input from the command prompt into the variable age. I'm going to say age equals console dot, and what is the method to use? It's readLine, right? And now I'm going to output and this time I'll just output. I keep thinking that I called the variable name. Okay, I'm going to output the value of the name and then the variable age. And there we have it. Okay, so we've got an int variable called age. Oh, I don't need an initial value for that. Okay, so we've declared a variable called age. I'm not going to give it an initial value. By default, C# gives it a value of 0. Then we're going to output a prompt, enter your age. Again, we're using write instead of WriteLine, so it stays on that same line. And then we'll assign the value of our input to age. And then we'll say Console.WriteLine, and we're going to output input is age years old. Now, this is in C#. the $sign indicates that we're using string interpolation, so that anytime we encounter a curly brace denoted variable inside of the string literal, it will actually insert the value from memory. So where we stored a value for age, inside of our interpolated string, it'll input the actual value stored in age. Notice there's an error. There's one thing that we haven't done. When we accept a variable from the command prompt, when we accept input from the readLine method from the command prompt, it is a string value. So C#, because it's using this explicit typing or strict typing, it's reading in that value as a string value. So we need to do something to change it so that C# recognizes it as an integer. So we need to convert it. So there is a convert class. This is just one of a few different ways. So now we are using this convert class. We're calling a method toInt32. And notice inside the parentheses we have the Console.ReadLine. So it's going to do with the innermost parentheses are evaluated first. So first we do the read line, it accepts the input, and then this convert int32 changes it to an integer value, and then it assigns it to age. Okay, so let me run that. So you'll see first James, and then enter age, 2, and you can see where it put James is the value that we input for input, and here we see it in the output. And 42 was input as a string, then converted to an integer, assigned to age, and then we see it output here as a 42. Okay, thanks.